I am so sorry. I was late. I was at the retina specialist getting my first AMD treatment. I was worried that the injection would hurt, but it was much better than I expected.
I'm so glad you're getting your AMD treated. Did you go to the same retina specialist that I see for my diabetic retinopathy?
Yes, and I was already having blurred central vision. And the retina specialist told me that by treating it early, I had a better chance of saving and even improving my vision.
It's important that we see an expert for our retinal conditions. A retina specialist also treated my son when his retina detached several years ago. The surgery saved his sight. When your vision is at risk from retinal disease, you need the expertise of a retina specialist. Retina specialists are highly trained physicians and surgeons who treat retinal conditions in adults and children, as well as severe eye trauma. If you experience blurred central vision, a curtain-like shadow in your vision, floaters, flashing lights, or wavy lines, see a retina specialist as soon as possible.
Our listeners depend on us for traffic, weather, news, and sports. But unless Washington acts, big tech companies could shut us up and shut us down. Big tech takes advantage of outdated federal regulations that could put us out of business. It's wrong. Text radio to 39179 to tell Washington to modernize decades-old restrictions on local radio and TV stations before big tech makes us disappear. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
The Wrap Up the Year sales event is going on now at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Drive home a new 2025 Ram 1500 and save over $13,000 off MSRP. Shop Magic City's great selection of Grand Cherokees, now discounted up to $6,300. Don't miss out on the biggest savings of the year. See us today at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1750 Independence Boulevard in Bedford. MagicCityBedford.com. See dealer for details and 1526.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
I get it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I like every element of it. As we welcome you into the Fast Lane, VTRN Sports app, ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports. Short edition of the show today, Presbyterian at Virginia Tech. This evening, first of two shows, by the way, where Virginia Tech basketball, women's and men's, has preempted us at 5:30 p.m. We're proud partners and carriers of Virginia Tech Athletics. Speaking of the Hokies, this does involve a former Hokie. Former Hokie, Brookville B, Logan Thomas. The situation that has now been resolved between Brookville/Campbell County, the Thomas family, and the VHSL has ultimately resulted in Brookville being placed on probation for football for the 2026 season, meaning they are ineligible for postseason play. And then, according to the news release from newsadvance.com, Bryson Gordon and our friends at ABC 13 WSET, a $100 fine and the forfeiture of the game where they were deemed ineligible but played anyway against Liberty. There are a lot of angles to this, and Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast can share his own thoughts with us in just a couple of moments. But the thing of it is, I get it. Something has to happen. Like, I am not a big, that's the way it's always been, and to protect precedent kind of guy. You could always adjust the rules later, but you have to have some type of structure in place for playing ineligible players. Otherwise, it's going to be larger. Now, the part where I don't necessarily like it is I would much rather stick Brookville with the larger fine. And I get it. Campbell County School Board, Brookville High School, they agreed to, the $100 fine and the probation for 2026, which means Brookville is ineligible for postseason play. But I'd much rather stick the school with a larger fine. School boards can afford to pay it. Or even suspend the head coach for, I don't know, a game, a couple of games, somewhere in that realm to mirror how this season unfolded for playing an eligible player. The forfeiting the game against Brookville, I mean, I guess technically it happens, but, You saw it with your own eyes broadcasting at TJ Wilkerson while we were doing Jefferson Forest Cavalier football presented by TrostLaw.com, and I can't remember who they were playing that night. I think it was the first of 2 times that they played EC Glass, but do not quote me on that. But, I get it. But the one thing that again, I don't know if there's a perfect solution to this, and I'm okay saying I don't think there is. But the fact that next year's team isn't eligible for the postseason, that's the part that stinks. Because, big picture, whether or not the Thomases, moved and actually live in the Brookville district, whether they technically live somewhere else, I could never envision a Thomas family member, especially one of Logan's sons, playing somewhere else other than for Brookville. Second of all, recruiting happens all the time in the VHSL. Mark Lindenberg went kind of scorched earth in the middle of this with his comment that he was just going to start reporting every school in the Seminole district where he thought violations had unfolded. And I get it. I don't know whether he did or not, but for crying out loud, JF lost to Varina. And this is not sour grapes for Jefferson Forest Cavaliers football presented by TrostLaw.com. But by all accounts, Varina's roster, not necessarily everybody on there, but they are a rural school with an urban roster, if you get the drift on that. And I don't begrudge them at all. I think a lot of kids that are in inner city Richmond benefit from moving out of the Richmond area and going to school further away and maybe even being with family members in Varina, which is a calmer area and easier to navigate than inner city Richmond. Highland Springs, Collegiate St. Christopher's, and Benedictine are all prep schools that have produced high-level talent at different years and based in the Richmond area. But to keep up with the public school, you're recruiting guys too. By all accounts, it happens there. It happens. John Marshall basketball is kind of the big example where they had a loaded roster and they kind of flaunted it by running the score up on everyone, much like, I think it was Haymarket maybe. It was one of those schools in Northern Virginia. Please, again, forgive me for getting it wrong. Where that happened. So the idea of Brookville recruiting Logan Tom, really, we're going to sit there and go on this. I get you can't play an eligible player. I understand the need to protect some kind of precedent when it comes to this. And the VHSL has to enact on punishments. But rather than making next year's team ineligible, again, this is just me. Feel free to disagree or agree. We'll get into in Fan Feedback Friday, this coming Friday, because we'll have a longer show. But Fastlane, Ed Lane, or TJ_Wilkerson8 on our socials. But I would much rather suspend Mark Lindenberg, whether he should technically be suspended or not, or if this is beyond his jurisdiction. You're the head coach. Somebody's got to take the fall if that's the case, even if it's for 3, 4, 5 games next year. And he can coach. I'm sure he would game plan around it, but it's just not going to be there in person for direct, on the spur of the moment, in-game adjustments in the spur of the moment. But again, I don't pretend to believe there's a perfect way to handle this situation, but it does sadden me that players for Brookville next year all of a sudden are ineligible for the postseason because of this.
No, I think it's downright distasteful. And I personally think they did it because one of the kids deemed ineligible is a senior next year. I think it was out of spite.
So that's kind of your take, is this was a spiteful decision.
It was because Brookville played those kids because, from what I was told, that the judge told the VHSL they had improbable cause, but he didn't rule in Brookville's favor either. So, from what I was told, the school board was allowed to make a decision, and they let the boys play. So, really and truly, I do think it's out of spite, but I'm not trying to disrespect the VHSL, nor do I intend to do so, but I do think that there is ties between rivals from Brookville in the VHSL that have also conflicted with this.
I'm sure there are. Again, I don't pretend to have all the answers. There has to be some kind of consequence of playing an ineligible player.
There should be.
And I get why Brookville was upset and why they wanted the Thomas kids to play, in particular, the oldest Cam, who was the senior this past season. His high school football career is over, but I get why the Thomas family in Brookville have been like, this is just dragging on too long. We want him to play. It doesn't matter. We need to get something on film for the next level. This is just the route to go. And the fact that it did drag on was unfortunate. And the fact that this was the case we're getting upset about when there are plenty of other instances, including in our backyard, where transfers happen routinely. And I kind of view transferring in the Seminole district or the Dogwood district or anywhere in high school football and basketball, kind of like back when I was in a fraternity in college when there was what's called Dirty Rush.
Yes, sir.
And if you're not familiar with a fraternity, we have plenty in our audience who are not Liberty University, but they're fraternities and sororities. And some are more party oriented than others. I'd like to say, maybe we were a little bit back in the day, but not as much as some of the extremes. But, it was kind of understood.
Yeah.
Where with fraternities, nobody reported anybody dirty rushing to the fraternity, to the Greek Life Council at Rhodes College.
Right.
Because we were all doing it. Like, that's kind of the gist and the way it operated. I think statute of limitations is probably unfolded from when this happened in like 2005, 2025. So I'd like to think we're kind of in the clear on this one.
Well, Ed, let me say this. I don't think it's fair to punish these kids that had nothing to do with this situation. I say fine Brookville, suspend either Mark Linneberg, as much as I love the guy. You want to do some suspensions? Suspend a coach. You can't suspend Logan Thomas, so suspend Mark for a game or two. The forfeit, whatever, fine. Make them forfeit against Liberty Bedford. That'll be great for their program to get a win too, because I love what they're doing up there. And something like that, even if they didn't play for that win, would be good for that program. Do not punish these kids away from postseason. No, like Nasir Cook and them, great players. Mark Tedesco. It's not fair. Who are they? They're going to be seniors next year. Nothing to do with this. And you are punishing young kids. And I will say it again, out of spite.
Do you know the ironic thing is that this might spur more recruitment for players from Brookville who want to play in the postseason, and all of a sudden they wind up on someone else's roster? Like, that's the part where
Look
I
for
get
Heritage to recruit them. They probably could go to Heritage next door.
They could go to LCA. This stuff happens all the time. Again, I've seen this go every single way. Players have left Heritage and been recruited by other programs. They've gone to that. To me, it operates everywhere in the Seminole District, and it's kind of it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And if you're really down, Liberty, for example, it's hard to retain players and it's harder to build. I hope that's changing. I love the way their season went this year, kind of bouncing back. It wasn't perfect, but it's a relatively speaking thing. But it's kind of the reality of it. So we'll get more on this around 5:15, 5:20 today with Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast. But rather quickly, before we go to break, we have Fast Five at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
Big coaching news of the day, at least locally, is JMU introducing Billy Napier as their head football coach. More on that Monday, covering the Commonwealth with Shane Metlin, and we may have a reaction if we have a chance to get to it later this week. But the bigger coaching news is the bombshell that dropped about a half hour ago, that Michigan has fired Sharon Moore with cause because of allegedly being involved in an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. 2 thoughts on this. First of all, are we naive to not think this may not go on at other universities to certain extents, but you're forgiven or overlooked if you're having a successful program? What happened at Florida last year with Todd Golden allegedly being involved in stalking seems like it would have been worse. Whether it was cleared or not, they were having a winning team. They went on to win the national championship. It's different. Michigan kind of felt like they underachieved, felt like even though they beat Ohio State last year, this year, it kind of felt like an indictment of where those programs are. Michigan probably comfortably in that second tier with your Nebraskas, your Iowas in the Big Ten, but that's not where they envision themselves being. They want to be on par with the Ohio States, Oregons, and in most years before they got crazy and fired James Franklin, Penn State. That's the goal. And I kind of wonder whether this is conveniently fired with cause, because it's technically fired with cause, but also we want to find a way out of this situation. Meanwhile, college basketball in
Number 4.
couple of nuggets. The ACC SEC challenge last week in men's basketball, 9-7 in the way of the SEC, which is a slight victory. It's disappointing for the ACC considering they had the lead going into Wednesday night and then only won 1 game. Ironically, the Virginia Cavaliers, who have looked really good from that to the victory against Dayton. I know Ryan Odom felt like they started slow last night against Maryland Eastern Shore, but it's hard to get up for every single game. The inconsistency there is understandable. Meanwhile, for Virginia Tech, they won their ACC SEC challenge game. It wasn't pretty against South Carolina, but they found a way to win, and they backed that up with a victory against George Mason, who's one of those teams that may end up winning the A-10, a higher-end program. Could be a quad 1, quad 2 game. I applaud Mike Young for scheduling it, and it was big for them. Speaking of college basketball, by the way, and the ACC,
Number 3.
Liberty goes on the road to an ACC opponent this evening at NC State. first time the Flames and Wolfpack have met during the regular season, and for the first time, Liberty has played an ACC opponent in the regular season since 2017. I would expect NC State wins this. 11.5 to 12 is kind of where the point spread seems like it is settled, at least as of seeing it a couple of hours ago. I think Liberty can keep it close. They can make enough threes. When they're on, they're on. I think State can provide more challenges, but I see Liberty being in a spot where this could at least be interesting.
Yeah, NC State has the size, though.
Yeah, that's where it ultimately, I think, is the major difference maker. Speaking of other news and nuggets in college basketball,
Number 2.
Georgia and Louisville mutually agreeing to cancel their home-and-home series in 2026-2027. They will, quote, try to schedule, end quote, a neutral site game on a later date. Georgia and NC State have also canceled their home-and-home series. This is the product of 9 conference games in the SEC and the Big Ten, especially for Georgia, who already plays Georgia Tech regularly, wanting essentially 2 bye games. One may be a 1AA FCS opponent. The other may be a group of 5 school like Marshall or Charlotte or whomever Georgia has regularly played, kind of a rent-a-victim scenario. It also speaks to the fact that Notre Dame, they're going to have a hard time scheduling in these agreements. Now, in the Super League, Notre Dame would be a part of it. Let's think bigger picture. But in the short term, it's going to be harder for Notre Dame to have a schedule that they fully want. They may get your Miamis or Texas A&Ms on the schedule like they did this year. But if USC wants out, if Miami's in a situation, and A&M and the others, Clemson, which doesn't look as good now as it used to, for Notre Dame, however this thing plays out, the reality is it's going to be harder to have a fully stacked schedule as these conferences go to 9 games, and most of them want their non-cons, especially the challenging ones, early in the season, where they then can have opportunities if they lose to make up for it when conference play begins. Speaking of Notre Dame, by the way,
Number 1.
the most petty thing on the planet. The Notre Dame bookstore has canceled a scheduled Friday signing of Ivan Mazel's book on Frank Leahy, the former Notre Dame coach, because Ivan Mazel is a member of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. I mean, this is the height of pettiness. He wrote a book on your coach, and you're canceling it because you're upset because he is an affiliate and a writer for ESPN and is part of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. I mean, Notre Dame, wear the black hat. You're taking it to an entirely new level with your snobbery and pettiness the way they've handled this. Don't get me wrong. Notre Dame is a big desired brand, and they would be at the top of anyone's list when it comes to college football realignment. But this is the step they're taking? Come on. Meanwhile, when we return to the fast lane, the step we're taking, Bob Alvis, Sports Buffet podcast on the Brookville situation and 2 teams seeing their high school football seasons end. That when we return here in the fast lane.
Down to savings during the Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Holiday savings have started, and this is your last chance to save. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Stop the search. Head to the Motor Mile for over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, and a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you choices more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company. We make it easy to buy with in-house financing. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. 11 new car brands, over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. Our biggest sale of the year is here. The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. But hurry, this sale ends when the new year begins.
Want an outdoor oasis? The Concrete Wizard can restore and revitalize your pool deck or patio. After the Concrete Wizard works the magic, your old, tired concrete will look new again. For pool decks, the Concrete Wizard can install a safe, innovative rubber surfacing option that's slip-resistant, soft, and easy on the feet. A great choice for families and anyone concerned about safety. Visit theconcretewizard.com for some ideas, then contact them today for a free consultation to create your perfect outdoor oasis.
Hi, Danny from Gibbons Books Little Dickens. We believe in reading and play and in shopping locally for stronger communities. 3 times more jobs are created by local businesses versus online sales. This holiday season, live local and shop local for a better Central Virginia.
Hey, this is Jake with Western Ways in Forest. Shop our thousands of pairs of boots in store with personalized customer service and excellent pricing. Shop Western Ways this holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's from our family to yours.
Hi, I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. We've seen a lot since 1982. One new issue is an increasing number of uninsured drivers. Unfortunately, when these drivers are at fault for an accident, there's a higher likelihood that they'll flee from the scene, leaving you with a potential mess. So in shopping for your auto insurance policy, please keep in mind that strong, uninsured motorist coverage can protect you from this headache. And if you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, call us at 777-HURT and visit trostlaw.com.
Have you been hit by the winter doldrums? Are you itching for a place with more than a couple hours of daylight? Start your journey to a warm weather escape with us. Scuba classes are forming right now at Aquatrek Adventures. We can have you ready for a warm, relaxing excursion to a sunny tropical destination, including our spring getaway to sunny Florida. Take the first step. Call Aquatrek Adventures on Mill Lane in Salem and visit our website at aquatrekadventures.com to sign up for the certification or your trip.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Perhaps regrettably, he says he can hear us. So we're going to see if we can hear him so we can go as quickly as possible to sharing the great insight from Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast here in the Fast Lane. Bob, great to be speaking with you. I hear some kind of sound rustling, which normally might not sound great, but for us, I give my heartfelt saying, welcome into the Fast Lane, and it is truly a welcome thing to hear.
It's probably the heater in the car because it's cold outside.
It is. It's been very cold outside. You're in it now. I was in it earlier trying to drum up business. As always, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, if you want to get connected, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or at gmail.com. Bob, we've done this always because when it's a hot button issue like the VHSL against Brookville, Campbell County, and the Thomas family, in whatever order you want to combine those forces, the resolution has been reached. Probation next year, postseason ineligible for Brookville football, forfeiting a game and a $100 fine. I made my thoughts known in our trostlaw.com fast take and in segment 1, so I'll give you a blank canvas. Your thoughts on this resolution?
Oh, I heard segment 1, and I definitely understand where you and TJ are coming from. I think I'd back off a little bit from the word unfair because probation has happened before in college sports to where people might have to miss the NCAA tournament, might miss a bowl game. It's been a long, long time since that happened. I think taking down banners or whatever, I think that's stupid. I think forfeiting wins from a previous season is stupid. Do I think that somebody needs to be responsible? You know, I'll be very honest with you, and this is going to sound like the biggest cop-out ever. I think there's so much that we don't know because it's totally 100% a he said, she said, and you better know somebody with the he said, she said, because otherwise it's just social media. I've never heard anybody come out and talk from either side that's got legitimate, cold, hard facts on this to where, you know, they will present it in the open. So until then, I really think a lot of people are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. You've got to read your boy BG in the news in advance and everybody like that who's reporting factually what's happened, which is court cases and, you know, things like this. But in terms of one side, I mean, the court of social media is now kind of deciding this in my eyes.
Yeah, that's the one challenge. I think it's great to remember that you should only invest so much when it comes to the court of social media, Bob. When you look at what's transpired with Liberty, or with not Liberty, with the Liberty loss being forfeited, I'm with you on that. I think it's a little ridiculous. The one thing that stings for me is just the idea that the next year's team cannot make it into the postseason. You got to have something, right? Because you can't have the precedent of ineligible players playing. But that's the one where I get it, but I can also sit there and say it does kind of stink because you hate to ever see kids not be able to be rewarded if they have a good year.
I mean, I would come on the backside of that by saying I heard the fast take where you know, maybe Mark Lindenberg should have to sit. What does that accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in game it makes it more challenging, but it does, again, impact next year's team, not this year's team.
And that's a loaded coaching staff at Brookville anyway. I mean, I honestly don't know that there's a good situation. I mean, if you've got all the facts and you're, you know, if you are hell bent on you're doing the right thing by probation for a year, I'll be honest with you. I'm just glad it didn't happen to every sport. I mean, it happened to the sport that kind of was, you know, quote unquote involved, but you're not taking it out on volleyball. You're You're not taking out on softball. I mean, the Thomas boys cannot dress up and play girls, so to speak. They can't go out for Jason Hudnall's softball team. They can't go out for Nick Lawrence and the women's basketball team. So I think it's at least the one part to me that's fair is you're not punishing every single sport across the board.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if this prevents all the other sports at Brookville from being punished, I absolutely get it in that sense, Bob. Pivoting off of the situation at Brookville to the action that's taken place. Kettle Run comes back and beats LCA. How devastating is that for LCA? It's been a great run. There's nothing to hang your hat on. Even if you're a senior, you come out knowing that you won, maybe a couple of state championships, depending on how long you played on varsity. But that type of way to end your season is still got to be a challenge for the Bulldogs.
My first thought when I saw the score and was seeing how it was transpiring was Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was my first thought because that thing it seemed like you could put it in the freezer for LCA and Kettle Run, give them all the credit in the world. This is what bothers me the most about high school sports and about any sport, because you always want to pick on a team for blowing a lead. You always want to pick on a team for not playing well, and that's why they lost. Well, how about give the team that won some credit, and how about give the team that made the comeback some credit? And, against all odds, no way should Kettle Run have come back. But Kettle Run did come back, give them credit, and I'm sure LCA, it's the week before I saw Heritage in their season in a way that was probably sick to them. LCA, those kids like Jaden Cowart and the other seniors are going to have to sit on this for their life, not for 365, but whenever they think about high school football, I hope they think of the state championships. I hope they think of big wins. But the fact that they might think of Kettle Run is overly disappointing to those kids, but that's the last game they played.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sting. No way around that, Bob. Meanwhile, Jefferson Forest, it stings the way the season ended, but I was up there. I mean, it was obvious. Varina was this is a really good team. Max Preps actually has them as the top computer-ranked team in the Commonwealth of Virginia, despite being 4A, higher than the 6A Oscar Smith. They're the favorites in that. And the two teams they played, one of whom they narrowly lost to but outgained, Maury, the other whom they beat by 2 touchdowns, Highland Springs, who are competing for that 5A championship. How much for Jefferson Forest is it stings that it's over and you don't get to play together, but you at least go out knowing that you lost to a really good team with a couple of dynamic players who are committed to UVA.
First off, I loved how we started the whole conversation by talking about Brookville, and ever since, I think you've used the word stings. So what irony in wordplay by Ed Lane, everybody. He's a wordsmith. I think by the newspaper of social media, everybody has crowned Varina a state champion before the game is even played. Loudoun County might have a little bit to say about that on Saturday, but I'll tell you what, you got to give JF credit for the year they've had. I'll be honest with you, I thought it was going to be really, really hard, especially if they got down against Varina, because it's a comeback offense, but it's not a comeback offense, I meant to say. It's a ball control offense, not really designed to come back. A lot of people will say, well, what offense is designed to come back, which is a fair point too. But, the biggest question to me going into the year of Jefferson Forest, everybody talked about how's the offensive line going to be? How's the offensive line going to be? And JT Cruz will give David Harlow credit till he's blue in the face of that guy really knows what he's doing. The offensive line played outstanding.
Very good point. That's the most impressive part about the year for Jefferson Forest. The insight is always impressive from Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast. Bob, thank you for joining us today in the Fast Lane. We're grateful you were able to make a little bit of time for us today. We'll chat again next week, our last chat of 2025.
Always love it.
Bob Alvis with us here in the Fast Lane, and a way to wrap it up today. Tomorrow, we'll have another short edition of the show. If you got feedback on this, though, fastlaneedlane@gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll get to that Friday in the Fast Lane tomorrow. A lot of Liberty Flames talk here. In the meantime, on to Virginia Tech basketball.
Inappropriate relationship with...
The following is a play-fly presentation of the